So basically, we're going to go over some meshing. The basic idea will be that we need to be not in drafting annotation, we need to actually be in 3D modeling. So if you're in drafting and annotation, go ahead and change it to 3D modeling. So you have this new toolbar setup, at which point you do have a mesh tab. So we're going to use that to create our meshes. There's a quick mesh setup, so you can do boxes, cones, cylinders, pyramids, just like our regular solid options right here or here. So what we can do, we go to our mesh. Let's start with a little simple box. So we create a box just like any solid object, except you can see now it's kind of hatched, which actually doesn't mean that it is exploded, it just means that it's a mesh. So what you want to do with the mesh, what you can do actually, is you can select lines, just single lines, or you can select a lot of lines, and you can drag it using your UCX coordinate system and pull it to an angle you like. And you can go both ways, actually, in all three UCX coordinates. The thing I always worry about this program is once you start meshing is you find these glitches. That's actually enclosed, but the computers don't have the best graphics here, so that's why you have that issue. And it's also possible for them to crash easily because it's more complex. Not only can you flex lines like this, you can also select points at corners. So when you select the corner, like so, you hold control and you select that corner, you can also drag it out. Something like this. If you want to even go lower, you can again click on the corner, holding control, and you go Z. So you have something like this, a pointing corner. Not only that, in Mesh you have the possibility of selecting a face. You hold control, you select one of these cubes, and you drag it out. And that pulls out everything with it. So you have to play around with that to get a feeling of what you can do.
Can you call that face that's like looks like a surface?
Right here?
Yeah.
Yes, any surface, any face you can actually, even if it's kind of a weird shape,
Even if it looks like a surface or a face. Yeah.
every face. So every part that has a enclosed area is an object you can pull out or in. You don't have to go out. So it creates a quite the design. And so play around with that, and then we'll get more into so we have that. You can also go with different shapes, like a sphere, and each face can be stretched out, like so. Or you can select a point, hold control. Sometimes it's tricky, but sometimes you get it. So be careful. And you do that, you stretch it out. And again, you can select lines and stretch them until you're satisfied for its positioning. Bless you. So, and then of course there's other shapes, even a mesh torus, which is nice. And you can select multiple surfaces, not just one. Select them and stretch them. Oh, that looks so cool. So like this cool new vase, even though it's not enclosed. What we can do afterwards is actually enclose it. I'm not sure if I should go into that right now because that's going to be a lot of work. But once you have a shape, like let's say this one. So everybody, I want you guys to do a torus of some thickness. Doesn't have to be completely too thick. And we're going to stretch out the inner surface, or the inner surface You can hold shift, even they're all selected. Keep on selecting more. Hold control and select them. And we're going to stretch up to create this unique shape. Now it's up to you if you want to select the inside part or the outside part, like here. I selected the outside and stretched it. Then we're going to stretch the inside part of the torus. So these segments. This might be a little difficult since we can't stretch them all to the center at the same time. So what you might want to do is select the lines instead. And we'll stretch them inside. We just want to create something that kind of encloses the bottom. Again, we're just playing around with this. There's no particular design. Oh, we have something like that. So it's closed. There's a few little holes at the bottom for air circulation and water drainage, if this is a base. And you can play around. You could add material to this. So you can add other designs. Now let's say you want to break this whole surface into two pieces. What you can do is use the split face command, and that allows you to select the face and you just draw a line and you split. So now you have two surfaces to play with. So you can drag out this surface and you can drag down the other surface, or any way you like, down or up. So it creates something completely unique. So other parts, once you have something established, something designed, and you don't want to see these edges such a big edge, you want to make it more smooth, there is a option to smooth the object. First you gotta go to smooth object. So it goes through the process. Oh, that's not good. That's not gonna help me. Okay, we can just go smooth more because it's already preset and it smooths the object. Every time you do it, it gets smoother and smoother until it becomes something that it can no longer get any closer. Like this now, it's gonna be, can't make it any smoother. That's as smooth as it can get. But it creates a beautiful, something that you can do no matter how hard you tried. Whoa, what happened? Ah, what did I press? So, there we go. I'm old school. So you got a really cool shape. I mean, some of these shapes won't work as well. Like we can try doing this one. So I select it, I go to mesh, I get smooth, 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 smooth. That's it. I think it's 3 times that it goes. And you got a smooth little shape. That's why I said you can design like rubber duckies or any kids' toys, especially baby kids. Babies have little soft, objects. In addition to that, when you're designing parts, so since the torus is such a nice thing to play with, again I selected the faces. You can select the edges too. So it's up to you which way you want to do it. Okay, come on. But at this point my computer is getting really slow. Well, not saving this work, so there we go. I'm dragging it out, create that shape. I'm gonna keep a copy of this because I'm gonna show you a few different differences. Let's go copy this over. I'm gonna delete the other things because they're really making my drawing very big and bulky. And we're gonna create creases. What creases do is they prevent the area that you make a crease from smoothing. So you can add or remove creases. To add creases, you select add creases and you select the face or to add the crease, you can also select, it's just a line. I just can't select it right now. So let's say I'm going to select these creases here. These faces, and make them creases. Now when I go to smooth more for this one, it's a bit different from, actually it's really not that big difference. Oh, there it is. Yeah. So with the creases, it resets itself to give you that crease. Compared to when you do it on this one without the crease, it doesn't keep that edge that you selected. So the two differences are right here. Because maybe you want the creases or you want that design. The other thing, and you can always go backwards too, which is nice. You can smooth less. So you can go back and edit it because you didn't like how it looked when it was smooth. And of course it's going to tell you that the level of unsmoothing hit max. So that smooth object can also be a solid object that you select. Mesh. Smooth object, and it's going to convert it into a mesh and already hit smooth once. That's how smooth object works. So again, you have a regular solid object like a cone, regular shape, and then if you go directly into, which actually you have the mesh toolbar here, a shorthand, but if you do it smooth object and you select the object, it automatically smooths it in once, so it already has a little bit of a smoothness to it. And again, you could add more, or you could remove that smoothness by smooth less. It goes back to the triangle, smooth more, it smooths it more until you can't smooth it anymore, and you got yourself a little cone. Again, that one's without crease, so you can see that the bottom is completely rounded. The edges are rounded. If we go smooth less, so we go back to it, and we add a crease to the bottom, like so. I just added a crease, and now if you go to smooth, I have I don't want the other one to compare it with, but it should have been more smooth. But if that okay, let's go back. Man. We might have to select the edges for the crease. Sometimes you can't select the edge and that happens, or the point. So what you can do is change your filter. Right now there's no filter, so I can pretty much select everything I want. Vertices, edges, and faces. So instead, I can change it just to edges. And I can only select edges. That helps you when it gets really complicated and you want to select a specified point or a line. You can do that. Okay, so I have that. I should be working now. Yep, it's working. So before it was like it had a radius at the bottom. At this point, it's no longer a radius. It's completely round, flat on the bottom because it's a crease. I added a crease to the line, to the edge. And of course, you can also do the extrude faces. Which already comes directly into that smooth option. It's already preset because you already smoothed the object. So you can really make some unique shapes. Should have made that same actually location. It'll look nicer. So you can play around with that. So again, split faces, we went over that. Merge faces is the same thing, except it's just like split face, except you combine all of them. So here's a good example. If I have a copy of this, and Actually, I need to uncrease this one so I can show it to you guys how it's done. And actually unsmooth. Okay, so I'm going to have two of these objects, like so. One is the regular one that we just saw, and the other one's going to have this full top piece as a one piece. So if we go to merge faces, we can merge all these. Like so, and these lines will no longer exist. Guess it's not going to let me do that. For some reason, merge face. Let's see. There he goes. It's either a computer can handle it or I don't know. But yeah. Alright, I guess we'll stick with it. Normally it would just make all this one face, and that way if you do decide to extrude it out or press pull it based on holding control and holding the face, you can do that, or you can do each one separately like here. Then let's just check what's the difference between the smoothness. See the smoothness on that? Technically it will be completely close, except I missed this one face. Here we got this shape. So there's a difference between that. One was completely one face, this one was one face, this one's separate faces. And there's smooth optimize. So here's a definition of all of them. Smooth optimize creates a smooth model that merges faces. So you no longer have these faces, they're all smoothed in. That's when you're doing the smooth. The other type is smooth not optimize. So it creates a smooth model with the same number of faces as the original mesh object. So here we gotta do some examples. Let's do something. Yeah, I like the torus. Let's just do that. So I'm gonna make copies of this so you guys have a difference in each one. Mesh. So this one's the first smooth optimized. Becomes one smooth object. Smooth optimized this way. Actually, it's not going to tell me us the difference. I have to use something different to show that. To do that, sorry about that. Smooth optimize and the 4 different options is when you're converting a solid object, a regular solid object, into a mesh. So I have these two, or actually it's 4 of these, and I go back to my mesh. I start with my smooth optimize. So I convert to surface. Wait. Why is this not working? Oh my God. All right, we'll go back to that. Another thing is, wait, where is it? So if we go into here, we can set up how many lines we get per each object that we use. So torus, how many axes, how many heights, so forth. And so that's an option. Another thing is that a student pointed out is that these are not solid objects. These are surfaces. So if I slice them, let's go to slice command. Oh, it's gonna kill me here. Might crash. So I can't really slice it unless I convert it first to a solid object or surfaces. So it's a mesh. It's not really surfaces. It's not really solids. It's its own identity. It's like a third identity. So there's 3 options. Either I can explode it, create a surface, or most of the time what you want to do is convert it to a solid. This sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. It worked. And that's where I can show you guys how this works. Right now, when I convert it to a solid, it creates a completely smooth object. 2 lines, that's all it has for this design. It's pretty much it's revolving around. If I go undo, I can do it again. If I change this to smooth, not optimized, and I convert this object to a solid, it creates something with lines. So you can still play around with it. And third one, so that's hard to explain. Creates an angular model that merges planar faces. So let's try this. Convert to solid. Actually, it is solid. It just creates it as is. We can test this out by slicing it, but I'll do that next after our final option, which is going to be faceted not optimized. There we go. And that creates these lines. It looks the same, but you can play around with it by actually stretching out parts of it. And it is a solid. So if you go to slice command, my favorite way of testing things out, and then move this object over, it is a solid object, and it can be printed in a 3D printer. So that is important. So you can use Sculpt. Sculpt is more of a surface enclosed object that it takes its volume and creates a solid object. So we can go over that right now actually. A sculpt object, so let's say I have this weird spline. So, oh, that was a little bit big. I should have drawn it on top view. Okay, so I'm using spline right now to design an object that I'm gonna sculpt. Now the principle of sculpt, it has to be completely water enclosed, so nothing can get in to create, so it can create a solid object out of it. Pretty much extruding all parts of this to create a surface. Oops. Extrude. Doesn't have to be equal, as long as it's somewhat the shape you're looking for. And at this point, I have it enclosed on 4 sides. I still need to close it from top and bottom. So I'm going to create 2 more, but I have to change my UCX. I'm going to rotate around, make sure ortho's on, and I'm going to create 2 splines. I usually try to design it away from the drawing so that it doesn't interfere or snap onto what I have designed so far. So I have that. I can extrude this out. I'm going to move it down. It's going to pop that reason because sometimes it will crash the computer if it's too sophisticated. And just making sure it's completely enclosed. Yes, and I'm going to use the same for the bottom and the top. I don't want to put too much effort into this. There we go. So we have this object that's enclosed. If you think about it, from all sides, it's enclosed. And we can use the sculpt command. Now, if we can just remember where the sculpt command was, it should be in the surfaces because we were playing with surfaces.
To your right.
What? Oh, right here. Sculpt. And we select the entire object. Oops, did it work? Modeling operation error. Operation did not add remove material. Solid created failure. Problem is it wasn't unioned. We got union together first before we sculpt. So we use the union command, select the entire object, we union it, yes, even though this can destroy my computer. It is one piece, and now we can try using the union command, the sculpt command to get the part. Let's see, solid creation failed, no watertight volume detected. There is an issue with this whole design. And that is the problem that I don't like using sculpt because it creates that issue. Alright, let's try that one more time. Yeah, it's not going to create it. But in case you do have something better designed, and you know it's completely enclosed, but it's exploded, this can be a way of saving you from having to redraw it. So let's say I have this broken up pieces. You can tell that because it's when I select the face, it's one piece, and if I move it over, it's an empty box. If I use the sculpt command for this, it will create a solid object. And you can see here, 6 found, select the surface or solid, sculpt into mesh. So it's actually created. You can see if I select it now, it's not a face, it's a one solid object. So sculpt does work. Sometimes it has issues like right here. And you don't have to union it. Those are the old versions that you had to union it for it to understand. So I'm going to try to again. I'm going to try exploding this and sculpting it. Maybe we can still make it work. Each part is over. Yeah, it's nice, but it's kind of destroyed. But okay. So there is a way around. If you can go back enough. I should have made a copy of it. Still unions. Okay, so we have all these parts separate. What we can do is play with surfaces, and we can use trimming. So you select surface or region to trim. So this is going to be something I'm going to trim, and a cutting curve, which is this. Click enter. I think it doesn't overextend. Yeah, it doesn't overextend. So if you find that problem it's not working, it's because one of the surfaces is longer than the other. At this point, this surface was equal or almost maybe a little bit less than this one, so it couldn't trim it off. So let's try this again. Trim command, select the region to trim. We're going to select trim that part, and it's going to ask us surf trim, select cutting curves, surface or region, so we're going to use that. Select area to trim, this one. So it trims that surface. Now you can keep on going around and doing that. Not sure, you can try. Now. And so you select that, and it's, oops, I selected the wrong side, but I actually wanted to trim that side, so that's okay. So you play around, you keep on trimming this until you have an enclosed object by itself, where you can that and that. So you can actually trim through. Is that what we were looking for? It's a little, it cuts time, so it's better.
More than one region,
It might get too confused. You can't select it, but you can select the same. You can use two different surfaces to slice or trim a piece. So you're using one piece as your reference and using other parts as trimming. If you remember 2D trimming was confusing, this is even more. Let's try a sculpt again. Maybe that I cleaned it up this time, it could work. Nope, failed. Somewhere in this design there is a gap, but I don't know where, or the computer is failing to recognize this object that's completely enclosed, creating a big issue out of it. Maybe it's too big, but I can't do anything about that. We'll get into more about surfaces because there's a lot of things like NURBS and there's a lot more into it, but right now let's go back to mesh. So even if you take a surface like this and move it over, I'm just going to delete the rest because it's going to come, and you use the thicken command, which we're used to. Man, I gotta find a thickness I can work with. There we go. So it actually has a thickness, even though it's really small. Should have made something bigger. But at this point, we can convert that into a mesh. Create a mesh. Kind of deforms it because it's set up for one smoothness. Actually, that facet with not optimized. So we unsmooth it, creating that back to that 1-inch thickness flat piece, at which point we can select faces by holding Control, or edges, and we can stretch it out, giving it an actual bigger thickness or a shape that we're looking for. And there's a lot more to mesh. I mean, you got to play around. It's really, it's hard to explain unless, you can't design something together at the same time. But you can work around it. You can select the edges and you can play around to see what shapes you can create. It does give you the basics of what you need to design cool, smooth objects like so. And if you guys have any questions, just let me know.